That's me in the very beginning. Now I am a baby and getting zoomed from my mom to my birthday. I don't remember a lot about my younger life, but I remember it was fun and I felt so safe. My mom and dad always happy. I guess my mom's sister was mad that my dad was so great, so she called the police and said he hit my mom. We were all reading and they came. I heard my dad yelling, "There, no way!" My mom was crying loudly. Some lady took us away. The court said my parents abused and neglected us. They only loved us. The caseworker lied. I never saw my parents again. I'm still hoping one day they come. I am a victim of CPS and so are my parents. We need to find justice in all of this madness for all of us. It's not fair. Every kid I know has a mom and dad. I know they miss me. I bet they fight every day for me to come home.
Don't get caught like us. Know your rights.
Psalm 127:3. Children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from Him. This suggests children are a precious gift from God to be valued and cared for.
In the United States, a child a minute is taken into DHS, CPS, and so on custody. The reality is their pics are already selected, you just don't know it. Being perfect no longer matters. It's what the adopting families are looking for.
Who is it stealing the children, you ask?
From caseworker to the White House, the buck stops at all levels, just not where it is supposed to be. The services your family needs, we the people have paid for to ensure your reunification. Title 4 says, reunify at all costs. United, we stand means nothing to us when it comes to family values. Children are being ripped away from their families. Parents are reverting to addictive behaviors to cover the pain. The trauma caused by child removal is just being recognized, and the results are atrocious. Termination of parental rights is not healthy for anyone, just profitable for the people enforcing the line.
It's time Washington listens to the cries of our children, the wails of their mothers, and the rage growing in the fathers. These are our children. Keep your damn hands off them. We are coming to act on the behalf of the children God gave us to protect, and you kidnapped. States are balancing budgets on kids. Only 12% of the kids taken will be reunified. Title IV funding is being riveted with fraud.
All right, everybody. Welcome to CPS Victims Hunting Justice. I am your host, CPS Punisher. Man, this world is fired up right now with everything that's going with the child trafficking. It's like everybody's attention to what's going on. You know, there's been a ton of us that have been trying to get people to be aware, and maybe it's taken a superstar in the news to how I guess we get them there, as long as we get them there. And people are starting to pay attention to this horror. You know, the number is 86% of the children that are found being by this number comes from the United Nations. It comes from CPS. The children have been passed through the system somehow. They've been lost. No one's left to find them because their real parents don't know where they are. This is what's been going on. You know, each state has anywhere between 500 and 1,500 kids a year that they lose through the system's cracks because no one's paying attention to them. Well, maybe now someone will start, because all of this news going on with all of these Hollywood people that everybody's been crying about finally being brought to the front. Maybe we can make something happen. I'm going to bring on my co-host here, Miss Melissa. Melissa, how are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you doing tonight, Darren?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. I mean, do you hear all of this news about the P. Diddy stuff and how all these kids from Hollywood are coming out and they're screaming and they're saying that they were all, you know, taking special interest to, if you will, when, you know, they were trying to, you know, make their way up through the top of being a celebrity, you know, as kids. You know, there's all kinds, and you know, a lot of these kids that they're going to find from these sex parties and things like that that we're finding out about them, they all come. I mean, you know just as well as I do, Melissa, that there are so many kids that just fall through the cracks of the system that they're not even keeping track.
Yeah, and not only that, you know, actually, my friend Jill patched into our show last night. Then this morning she calls me. She says, Melissa, she says, it's crazy. Everything that you guys was talking about.
Oh, there goes the government taking you out. They didn't want you to hear what you had to say.
Yeah, you there?
Yep.
Anyways,
so
no, she was saying that she's like, Melissa, she says, I watched the show and everything you guys was speaking, she says, it was right. It was right on the money. She says, this morning I got up and I watched Fox News in Birmingham. She says, I was watching Fox News, and she says, they was talking about the corruption of CPS workers and how they're destroying families. She says it was on national news this morning.
Yeah, I mean, it's about time, but I mean, it sucks that it took, a big superstar, but we've been saying this a long time. Maybe we're looking at this the wrong way.
40 years and millions of families, yeah.
Right, but maybe we were looking at this the wrong way. We've been looking for someone to come out and take the lead in this situation, but maybe it's not the lead that we needed to take it. Maybe we needed the celebrity and then make notice to it. I mean, either way, we're getting some attention now, and we'll take it. I mean,
right.
That's just, but unfortunately, if this is the way it has to be done, then this is the way it's going to be done. But I mean, what the hell, right? We're getting some notice, and CPS is going to be outed by this. I mean, I read that a few weeks back. Remember, I read, like the way that this conspiracy will go down, and like CPS, I think, was number 6 in the issue when that will start to break what's going on. Like this is just a travesty, and it's just. Whatever it is, what it is, but it's getting us to be able to speak more freely about it, because a few years ago people wouldn't dare come out and talk to CPS like this, like we're doing right here.
Right, right, absolutely.
This was just
there is something to say about freedom of speech and the fact that some of the freedom of speech things, I think that we now get to more exercise. I think we have, you see the people on TikTok that do constitutional audits, and they go to these courthouses and they go to the police departments, and they voice their right of association. They voice their right to speak. They show that they will not just give out an ID because a cop demands it. And I think it's the little things like that is changing the system, so that we, the parents, we can now come out and speak and not be hampered by our right of association.
Correct. That was the big
thing. Because all of those people are suing the crap out of all of these areas under the arguments of constitutional violation. And now the Constitution is starting to get heard. People are waking up. People are getting smarter.
Well, people are getting smarter, but like you said, they're coming out. Things are coming out and being put, there used to be, I know for a fact that there was a news penalty if up on the news and it was not real, or if it was a falsity at all, unlike what they can do. They got a $50,000 fine. They lost, which was nothing to a news organization, but what they did lose was their on air rights for a day. And I mean, that was killing them. I mean, that so they didn't dare put forth any sort of anything about CPS. And it's funny because a news agency can come on and trash the president of the United States, but they can't come on to a government agency and say, hey, these people are stealing our kids.
Right.
It's crazy. Hey, there was I don't know if you heard this story. It's from a few months ago, but there was a new lawsuit filed against Florida's foster care system, and it was because they weren't allowing the families access to their children. I found this today when I was looking through stuff. Let's take a look at this. Check this out. This is pretty crazy. Well, it's not crazy for us because we know what goes on, but for other people, they might get a little twinge on it here. Hold on.
Right.
Who say the system is not only broken but corrupt and using its power and influence to break families apart.
With a village of family members surrounding them.
I'm sorry. It's okay. It's so much.
Tanai and Rodney Williams are for the first time publicly sharing what they describe no loving parent should ever have to.
They called us abusers and they just took us from us.
Detailing first in a lawsuit and now to us why they say the system created to protect families not only failed them, but distorted the truth to steal their daughter away.
I don't know anything about her, what her favorite color is, her favorite show on TV. I don't know anything.
Williams are among 4 Florida families now suing the governor and leaders of Florida's Department of Children and Families and other state foster care organizations, accusing the organizations of fabricating evidence, hiding and withholding key information, and ignoring state and federal family laws so they could snatch children from their biological families and then adopt them out to system-connected strangers, seeking children of their own.
It's been 4 years and 3 months.
For the Williams, it started in 2017 when their then 12-week-old daughter showed signs of leg pain. Mom took her to the ER. According to court records, X-rays revealed a fractured femur and other fractures in various stages of healing. Despite the baby's traumatic birth, which included a broken clavicle and bruising documented by her pediatrician, a nurse suspected abuse. Mom and Dad were investigated by police. Case closed, no criminal charges, according to the 106-page complaint filed Wednesday in a federal district court in Tallahassee. Still, the suit says DCF removed the baby and her brother from the home. These young parents eventually stripped of their parental rights.
It broke us, it changed us. It's just like it's always gonna be a part of us missing until she comes home, honestly.
It ruined my life.
While the couple denies they abuse their children and are fighting to get their parental rights restored, their relatives say the system also broke them by depriving the family of their rights to take custody of the baby, bypassing state and federal laws that require foster care systems seek out relatives before placing children with non-relative strangers.
Ready, willing, and able.
We passed all the home studies. I mean, they dug in our background. I'm talking about, I've been in the military. And the background checks that we went through were just as bad.
Yet these grandparents say they were ultimately disqualified from adopting their granddaughter.
They came up with so many different excuses.
I am retired military, worked for the city of New York, college degree. There was nothing wrong with me having my granddaughter.
This biological grandmother says at one point caseworkers falsely claimed she abused her own son years earlier and was even listed on the abuse registry as a child abuser.
He was 18 years old at the time.
All lies, she says.
I felt like it was a conspiracy.
And part of a bigger intent described in this lawsuit as unlawful internal diversion to let operators of the system essentially have their choice of children placed into the state's custody.
Why would they do it?
Lee Crutch is the baby's biological great aunt.
Because they've been doing it for so long, and they never expected to get caught.
In the Williams case, their daughter was fostered out to this family, the father a board member at the time for the same contracted foster agency that fought to terminate the parents' rights.
Felt like it was a setup.
I can't even describe the pain that we experienced as a family.
Judy Miller says it happened to her family too, nearly 3 years ago. She moved to Florida from Illinois to care for granddaughter after her daughter and son-in-law's parental rights were terminated. While the parents deny they did anything wrong, Miller says she was one of 8 relatives ready, willing, and able to take custody, but rejected.
They did 2 home studies, and they both were approved.
According to this lawsuit, Miller's bond with her daughter was too close. So instead of family, her grandbaby was placed with a stranger. System connected, the complaint states.
You can't write off the whole family, though.
Same for this family, whose daughter won't grow up with her half-sister because DCF, against committee recommendations to keep the baby with family, instead placed her with a non-relative. Foster system connected.
She was a pretty little blonde-haired, blue-eyed baby. Of course they wanted her.
It's happening all over Florida.
So this is much bigger than these 4 families.
It's much bigger.
Octavia Brown is part of the team of attorneys behind this complaint.
This is alleging kidnapping within the system.
What else do you call it?
Brown is also an insider, a former attorney for DCF and other groups within Florida's foster care system.
If there is someone who is connected to the system and they see a child that they want, they are going to get the child.
While she believes the system overall protects children from abuse, she explains how staff who collaborate to deliberately keep a child from being placed with relatives can get away with it.
This system is so bogged down when they come in with these false stories or they come in with false allegations of caregivers having backgrounds. The judge is not going to say, oh, well, let me look at this home study. oh, let me look at this, criminal background check.
Young parents and poor families are most vulnerable, she says.
Because those families don't have the money to fight the bogus allegations.
Today, the Williams are parents to a little boy, their older son placed with grandparents, while their only daughter remains gone, adopted 3 years ago by the same board member in his family who first took her in. In an email, the now former board member stated, "I would certainly like to speak to you regarding our daughter. I'm sure you've heard several fabulous stories which are not true." He never elaborated. His attorney wouldn't let him, telling me custody cases are by law confidential and can't be publicly discussed. In response to this lawsuit, a spokesperson from DCF told us in this email, in part, "We work to exhaust all effort to find a relative or non-relative caregiver for children removed from biological parents. Our goal is family preservation whenever possible." But the Williams and the 3 other Florida families named in this lawsuit say that's not what happened to them. Now they're hoping the justice system can do what they believe the state's child welfare system went out of its way and against the law not to.
She's a black child raised in a white household, and she's going to find out that she was stolen from an excellent family.
The system is a lie. That's just what it is.
A DCF spokesperson adds Florida is at an 18-year low when it comes to removing children from caregivers and says they have invested millions of dollars over the last 3 years to keep kids with family. As for this lawsuit, next steps, responses from these state agencies. I'm Katie LaGrone reporting.
Ooh, it's the way the system is working. I mean, that's just it. They just are taking these kids. I mean, firsthand, Melissa, some of these caseworkers are taking these kids.
Absolutely. I mean, right now, I'm pretty sure it's a caseworker that's got my kid.
Right.
And they couldn't wait to move her. They shuffled her off so quick that I got notice of, I got acknowledgement of a, quote, claim. Not even a proven allegation, nothing. Just, oh, by the way, did you hear? That was at 3 o'clock. By 5 o'clock, my kid was moved. She had been in that home for 2 years with that foster parent. And I agree with what they were saying about filing the suit under legally kidnapped. Because look at my case. What court authority do they have to hold them?
They have none. None.
That's just like what they did in your case. They had no court authority. They didn't maintain dependency. They just rushed to termination, rushed to pawn them off on someone else, and they like to ignore you like you don't exist.
Yep. That's their game. And the whole time they're preaching reunification, really what they're doing is just maintaining that bar for them to get their funding from Title IV, but they're just there to take your kid and terminate your rights.
Well, yeah, and I think it's pretty cool that now we're starting to get some of these attorneys who are willing to start filing suit to challenge the constitutional correctness of the system and how they're screwing families. In our state, Tommy James is a big name. I had actually emailed you a link. That's one of the big cases where they're taking, in our state, the Department of Justice ruled that there is abuse in our system in Alabama, okay? And what they're finding is that they're taking kids from loving homes, especially the older kids. They call them level 4s. And what a level 4 is a kid that they consider to be a runaway, a violent risk, or a suicide risk. Okay? And they're cramming all of these level 4s into our nut wards. They're not schooling them. They're not giving them counseling. They're not doing anything to better these children. They're just storing them behind razor wire, like a debtor's prison. because that's what they did with my daughter. And that's where my daughter got beat so bad that she ended up with a brain bleed from it.
That's right.
You know, and actually we were at the attorney's office today, and my daughter was talking to one of the constitutionally qualified attorneys from my case, and he's now getting ready to sue the ex-director, Jody Netta, and the psych ward that they threw her in as a level 4, because the director told her, says, you're either going to help me make a case against my mother, you know, against your mother, meaning me. She says, otherwise, what we're going to turn around and do is we're going to turn around and keep you till you're 24 years of age. We're going to deem you mentally incompetent. So you either help us, the state, make a case to TPR the rights, because they didn't have a case.
Right.
So, you know, they either wanted my daughter, who was old enough to speak, to help them scheme up a case against me, or they was going to directly take it out on her. They told her they would get her a car, they'd put her into independent living, they'd let her get her GED, they'd hurry up and emancipate her from the system. She just had to help them make a case against me.
Jesus almighty. Your own kid against you. That's just terrible. I can't even believe that they're allowed to do that. You know, like, how far are they willing to go to tell a story against one's parent? And then these things, you know, like, they're going to believe a child and their story.
Well, that's just it. They don't check the accuracy of it, because the worker backs them. Therefore, it must be the truth. They are a government official.
Right.
And we're just the lying sack of shit parents.
That is the truth. That's how we're perceived, and that's how they push us off to the public, and that's why we can't get people out there to join this fight with us, you know, because everybody is so pressed and made to feel like such a low life that they're not even willing to get in this thing with us, you know.
But you know what? When you go through and you read case law, because you know, I know, me and you read a lot of case law. You know, there is case law from every single state in our country that straightforward says that CPS lies and deceives and commits perjury to make their case, and it shall not be upheld by the Supreme Court. Because I've looked up the same case law in all the different states. You know, different family, different year, but the same argument.
Yep.
I've looked up 2 to 3 to each state to see if it was a pattern, because I was looking at something that may be able to be done on a national level. It was kind of a little side project me and Kim was working on to see if there was a way to go after them as a whole, based on the fact that it is a country-wide Supreme Court ruling that they are lying and deceiving with the intent to defraud the system for the purposes of stealing children.
Right. And that's not what Joe Blow America thinks is happening. So they don't care. They don't say anything about it, because they think that, as we would have thought, that here comes America to the rescue. You know, America, here we come. You know, that's what I thought anyway.
Well, I mean, you like you've said, how many times have you said, until I was in that position, I thought people tied up in the state were horrible, nasty people, until it was me there.
Yep. Yep.
And with the way they did it, with the way they did everything against you, it's almost like they applied the criminal case just as an excuse to steal the kid.
Right. And that's what I mean. That's what, you know. In my case, in the substantiation that they did against me, it says we are not able to put in words the reason that we found how we came to this decision. We cannot write, and we can't write words how we came to this decision. And I'm like, wait a minute, that either means I'm such a terrible person that there's no words in the English language, or two, there is no anything in the English language because I didn't do anything wrong. You know, like that's
well, maybe they didn't know how to look it up in Elvish.
Yeah, they didn't know how to do something.
Maybe
I don't know
maybe they needed to look it up in Pig Latin.
Exactly what it was. You know? It's just so ridiculous. And they're getting away with this all the time. Every day they're lying. I mean, they're stealing a child a minute that never gets to go home and see their parents. They're stealing a child a minute. They get away with this all the time.
Well, and it was just like I was speaking to the retired attorney earlier, and we were discussing the statistics of the children stolen and the children removed. And I told him how me and you have done a lot of like deep dive on a national level research into how many kids are really stolen, where they go, what is the funding, what is the increased suicide risk, how many of them get trafficked. And at the end of it, he says, well, I don't know where you get your numbers from. He says, but I think the problem's much greater than that. He says, I've worked in family law my entire legal career. He says, and I believe that it is much bigger than that.
Yeah, it is way bigger. Hey, everybody, carry out time they noticed, or it's a big distraction. Hey, if you guys are out there and you're watching us, put down what state you guys are from. That way we know what areas we're looking at problems. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this on YouTube. It's very important. I didn't realize the importance of it, but it is. If you could just write down what state you are in the chats, that would be really huge. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this. Melissa, the video that you sent me, you want to play that? Did you want
yeah, if you want to throw it up, I emailed you the link. I don't know if you could pull that up, and because that talks about the actual abuse to the children in the system. That's attorney Tommy James right here in Alabama, and he's working a bunch of huge cases against CPS in this state. And this same thing is occurring in Tennessee. There's group homes where they're being forced to sleep on the floors. And there's, I believe there was like flooding or something to the extent of water coming in the doors. And these kids were sleeping on cots in the floors. And they were having to try to move them into like hotels and stuff, into like little cockroach inns in like the Nashville area. And you know, some crazy crap. So, you know, this is a video. Right. This is a video that shows more of the truth. You know, it's not parents abusing kids, it's the system abusing kids.
That is a fact. That is a fact. And it's about time, like we said, that these news organizations start pulling this stuff up. All right, here we go. Let's see here.
Disturbing allegations about facilities in Alabama helping children with mental health issues. TM13's Chip Scarborough, why it's prompted illegal action.
A class action lawsuit filed against Alabama's Department of Human Resources alleges some young people across the state are unnecessarily placed in mental health facilities.
DHR is placing children in these facilities right now who don't need to be placed in these facilities, who should be out in the community in foster care with their relatives. Instead, they're being placed in these awful facilities.
Cahaba Heights attorney Tommy James says children who are placed in these facilities by DHR are often physically and emotionally abused, not to mention kept there much longer than they should be. He represents a client who he says actually needed help but was driven to doing the unthinkable.
He was beaten by staff numerous times, beaten by other peers there numerous times. In fact, in one stretch over about 10 days, he was beaten both by staff and by his peers so many times that he tried to commit suicide, tried to hang himself with one of his shirts, and thankfully that failed.
Attorney Tommy James says, unfortunately, this is not a problem that's exclusive to Alabama. He says it goes on nationwide. He says the goal of the lawsuit is to ensure children placed in these facilities are treated properly and aren't kept there too long. In Birmingham, Chip Scarborough, WVTM 13.
We've reached out to Alabama DHR for a comment on the class action suit. A spokesperson says the organization has not yet been served, but is aware of the lawsuit through media coverage.
Is aware. They are aware. How about they get aware of the fact that these kids are in such horrible conditions that they need to stop doing this stuff. Maybe they need to taking kids out of their homes so quick, and maybe they should start giving parents a little bit more of benefit of the doubt of what's going on. I mean, that's the reality of what's going on here. They know what they're doing. If they're going to sit there, what person in their right mind can look at those pictures that just happened and say, hey, I put those kids in there, and think that that's good and that's not abuse itself? Who in their right mind can do that?
Right. Yeah, I know. How many times did you, hey, Darren, it's just like saying, how many times did you beat your daughter last week? Oh,
Yeah,
none?
exactly.
But yet they're
Right.
saying over a period of 10 days that this kid was beaten to the point that he felt his only way out was suicide.
Can you imagine? You just imagine that's how they feel. That this is so. What happened so badly in this kid's house that this is where it's been brought to, where he's been
Well,
brought to?
so that place
Really?
that's being sued, that is the same place they housed my daughter and she was beat. If you go on Indeed and you can look up like their their ratings through Indeed, it's called Laurel Oaks Behavioral Health in Dothan, Alabama.
Okay.
Their own staff members throw them under the bus and they talk about the abuse of the children. And they talk about the staff not being trained to handle children. They have 2 long-term wards. They have one, Ward A, girls ward, Ward A, where that's where they put the violent girls that are beating the shit out of each other. Ward B is the suicidal girls that are literally hurting each other.
It's crazy. But here again, right? What did they do? What did these kids do so bad that they deserve to be put in that situation? Because these are supposed to be victims in all of these situations, right? Like these are supposed to be the victim in this situation, and yet we're taking them out and then putting them into prison. For instance, prisons. This is crazy crap. The kids need protection from these evil people. Absolutely. What did these kids do so wrong to deserve the treatment that they're getting? Because that's really what the question is now. It's what did these kids do wrong?
Well, right. Because even if the parent was a druggie, even if the parent shoplifted some food because they didn't have money to buy groceries that day, does that really warrant your child being punished?
Right. These kids should be going to Disney World and put up in hotels there and lavish surroundings and things like that. Not put into more stressful situations. Not put into situations where, you're like, holy crap, I cannot believe that these kids are in this situation. We shouldn't be saying that at all. We should be going, wow, those kids, thankfully, or so on and so forth. Not this junk.
Yeah,
not
this system is so backwards. The way it really should be, when you have the druggie, you have the abuser, you have the thief, you have these actual abusive situations that pose a risk of harm. Fine, place the child with the best family you can find to give them the best care they can have, and then turn around and put the parent behind razor wire where they're getting their ass kicked. Teach them not to do that. Put them in services, put them in rehab, put them in family counseling. unite the family together. That's what the system is supposed to be. So
Right, and that's why
they
that's what they're
created
getting all
a
these millions of dollars
financial
for.
monster for gain.
This is it's insane. Yeah, I just can't believe they were this, because they have what? Immunity, right? They've got immunity to all this.
Yeah, and
They're not worried about
that's what Yancy was talking to Sarah about earlier today. While he was talking to her about her ability to sue the system, and how because he's like, well, look, he says, because of what happened to you in Dothan at Laurel Oaks, he says we could sue them in their own county. I said, yeah, but I said, that's Hudson County. It's a small county. I'm sure this facility contributes a lot of financial funding. And I told him, I said, look, Attorney Tommy James is doing a class action level thing against these facilities. I said, so with that being said, maybe we're better off just jumping into the federal court to where they're already aware of the situation, and we're not getting Peter, who's paying Paul to protect his own ass out in Podunkville.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the
You know,
funding, yeah, it's just, they're giving so much money. They're giving so much money that they have forgotten about what the money was for. It's not for the kids anymore. This is for them to grease their own pockets. That's what they all think. It's for the caseworker to get the new car. I'm getting around and I'm not trying to offend anybody, but like a Honda Accord or something, like some sort of, older car, or a Chevette or something, you know what I mean? Like, how caseworkers always have these nice new cars, right? Like, so how is caseworker on a $24,000 supposed salary buying, they're driving around a Mercedes, and they're driving around.
Oh, you mean 24,000 plus commission?
Right, exactly. Like this money.
Yeah, the supervisory commission that they get for supervising the amount of cases. Therefore, the longer the kid stays in the system, the more money they get, the nicer the car gets.
Right. And I love how these caseworkers, they come out and they give you your reunification plan, and on there they put 1 year. Oh, so now all of a sudden you're a doctor. You're some sort of, you have what it takes to make these decisions. You have the credentials to go ahead and my child and my family, after a 15-minute visit, and after you sign a safety plan, to tell me that's going to take 1 year for us to heal? Perfect. I mean,
well, I would have been happy with that if they would have came to me and we would have went to court and the judge would have slammed his gavel down and say, okay, Miss Hara, you have 1 year to do parenting classes, counseling, group counseling, family, whatever, kiss my ass service, go blow the judge service. I would have been happy with that. Okay? Right. What I got was a judge that said, no, I will never hold court again until your daughter, who almost died in the system, agrees to come back and go back into that same system as a level 4.
Wow.
So I would have been happy with the judge, saying, bribe me in the back room or something. But I didn't get that. So at our last ISP meeting, the new supervisor, this Shakira is her name, Shakira Kyles. She's like, well, typically visitation increases are assessed by the court, and that's done as you're meeting your goals through your reunification case. And I said, okay. I said, can I set something straight here? And she says, okay, yeah, I'm listening. She was very polite the first day. And I said, look, in my case, the only orders we have are the initial shelter order. And I did not say, actually, I kind of did say I know they're expired, but I rushed through it because the department's attorney is sitting just to my right. So I didn't want him to understand how much I noticed. I said, this case only has shelter orders which in accordance to the policies have to be deemed dependent within 6 months. I said, and they haven't been done. I said, the court was adjourned for a period of 11 months. I said, and then we held a hearing which was appealed and de novoed. Therefore, that hearing no longer exists. And this case has continued for another 7 months. I said, so we are 18 months into this, and there is no established dependency. I said, therefore, per your own guidelines and procedures, visitations must be increased to maintain the family bond. And reunification must be worked until established otherwise in the eye of the court. The attorney for the department is sitting next to me, shaking his head yes.
Unbelievable. Happens.
And that's their own attorney. Oh,
right. And
I found out he does not know that they fired all the caseworkers.
And that's another thing. How come it is now that you finally start to get a little bit of headway and then they fire the caseworkers? There's got to be a rule against that. I mean, you know damn well that
actually there is. It's a constitutional argument. Sixth Amendment, the right to cross-examine. You have the right to call a witness. You have the right to cross-examine a witness for the fairness of law, for the fairness of justice. And at the point that fairness is stricken from you by failing, to bring forth the witness under their own deceitfulness, it deems the case void. There is essentially tons of case law under the equivocal of a void ab initio, based solely on that. I've been doing my research on it, and it seems to be a big tactic that the department uses when the parent's getting a step ahead. All of a sudden, the caseworkers that were saying good things just vanish. They no longer work at that department. They no longer work at that building. They're just gone.
Yep. That's what they do. They get them out of there because they don't want, not everybody's going to lie for them. Not everybody wants. I mean, let's get this right here. There are some decent people in this profession, and they're not going to sit up there and lie and force. Every person knows what's right and wrong. We all have morals, right? We all were grown up by the same ideals. We were all made and created by people, that had, like our parents used to speak volumes for them because they taught different, all of this stuff. These caseworkers too, they all know what's right or wrong. Those bedrooms that we just showed on that show and where they're housing these kids, that's not wrong. And there's not one person in this country or any country that will sit here and say that it's right to put children in those situations. It's not right to take children from their parents and then say, oh, we'll lie about, the situation that they're in. No, what are they going to do when they're going to tell the truth? They take them off their case. They make it so that they're not available, because I'm sure that those caseworkers that were in your case were going to say, look, this is out of line. These kids don't even have a permanent. Way overdue for them just going home because there's nothing to holding them on anyway. Take them out. They take them out. There's someone else that'll fill that void, and they're going to say that they're unavailable. They're in training. This is what they do to all of us. When it comes time, I needed a police officer to come in to step into my situation to be at the TPR hearing, and you know what? Suddenly he's in training. So my TPR hearing, isn't it important for this veteran police officer to take a day off of his training? Are you kidding me? The ones that could have spouted out what really happened, and the fact that it worker and everything, but now he's at a police training seminar. Come on, this is all on purpose. They do all.
Well, like the video that you put up, it spoke about how they're suing because they refused to do the ICPC investigation and place the children with family. Okay, we filled out family forms back in 22. The caseworker at the last ISP, which would have been last Thursday, okay, so literally a week ago today, she said 2 weeks ago, I submitted your case to finally start having an ICPC investigation. So this is 2 weeks ago after 2 years. Okay, well, that worker's gone. Her original supervisor, Kim Gudros, she's gone. And she's the ICPC worker who does the investigation. And then when they told me that they'd given me the lady who's known for lying through her teeth on the files, I said, no, I won't work with her. What about Miss Mitchell, a previous caseworker? Oh, yeah, no, she's gone too. So now everyone's just gone. Oh well.
Yep. And just sit in limbo and wait for now for a judge to just make a damn ruling, for a department to do their job, or just send them home. At what point are they going to stop holding these kids and it's time to just say, take them home? There's been long enough. You guys couldn't prove anything. You couldn't get anything done. Send them home. At what point?
Right.
There's got to be a point. This thing needs to be stopped. Period. It's most of these people. It's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Send the freaking kids home. That's all they want anyway. All they want to do is they're just asking for their moms and dads. That's all they're doing. So what kind of abuse? It's just ridiculous. And as long as people aren't coming out and putting themselves out there and saying, hey, this needs to stop, it's not going to stop. As long as people aren't voting the right way, this is not going to stop. Things that are so simple that people can do, and they're not doing it. And this is what we ask for help from everybody. All little things that people can do to ensure that this doesn't go on, because this in itself is abuse and neglect.
Right.
Really
and if more families would stand up against the system and take the arguments to the right courts, we might be able to start changing things. But it's going to take a hell of a lot more 1983 filings than what we currently have. It's going to take parents willing to come out of the shadows, willing to stand up for their family. It's going to take fathers who have been chased away to come back and say, fuck that, that's my family. Because that's what they tried to do to you. They tried to chase you away, belittle you, break you down so that you would not fight to protect your family. They just didn't know who they were fucking with.
Yep, that's the fact. They do. They come in and they immediately say, oh, the woman's been abused. Now, if you've been abused, then that's a good. If you haven't been, it's an awful thing. They force your family. They separate your family. They make it so that the man is obsolete, because it's the man's job to take care of his woman and his family. That's fact. And if you're not man enough to do that and stand up for your family and stand by them by that, then women, you should probably be getting another man, because any man should be there to protect his. They do first. They come in and they try to separate that. They try to break that first and foremost, so then they can take the woman and they can, tell her, they tell her, oh, if you get rid of them, then you can have your kid back. It's all lies. They lie. And at the end of it, now a woman's pushed the guy away. Now he's scared to death running. He doesn't want anything to do with this because she's been put through a ringer. You have kids that are sitting there crying. The system created all of this, all because someone smoked a joint.
So, in the beginning of my case, the worker told me that me and my husband would not be eligible to get the kids back if we separated, because to kiss the judge's ass, we were going to separate. So during the ISP, she says, well, how can you prove that you are a stable household if you two separate into two separate homes? You won't be eligible because you will be unstable. So we stayed together, and that was the director. It wasn't like it was just, the low level caseworker. This was the director of the department. Told us that we had to stay together in order to be stable to get the kids home. So we stay together. We fight this together. Now they're saying that because I stayed with him and I did not separate, that I now do not qualify to get my kids home. And that I pose a risk of harm because I failed to protect.
Yep, it's a freaking game.
Just like that original director was telling my daughter Sarah that she needed to speak out and say that my husband was sexually assaulting her.
Right.
That's the kind of allegations they wanted my daughter to say in order to get a car, to get an apartment in a transition home, to get emancipated. They wanted her to call him a pedophile and to say that he was assaulting her. When she says, wait a minute, he's been the best father I've ever had. He might only be my stepfather, but he is better to me than my own dad. I'm not going to do it. They told her they'd keep her till she was 24.
Well, Melissa, we're at that time. Guys, listen, if you're on here and you're watching us, make sure you guys like and subscribe with us. We have a chat here that you guys are more than welcome to contribute questions if you got stories. There you are, buddy.
Yes.
How we doing tonight?
Yes, I came up listening. As I'm listening to you and Melissa, I came up with something that I don't think anybody else ever thought about. And that is, what if you guys were to take on board or communicate with psychologists or psychiatrists that can certify the fact that if a child is born into a family, taken away from the family, the type of mental destruction that could go on in that child's brain when they're given back to the family, and to justify why the child should not be away from the family. A psychologist, psychiatrist level.
Herbert, there is tons of mental health reports already out, done by some of the biggest and greatest psychiatrists, because they're a higher qualification in the country, and psychologists in the country. Some of the greatest professors out there have put out things that say, even though the child is too young to have the correct memory recall to notice the change, there is actually a chemical change in the brain that causes security issues, family bonding issues, and all kinds of things. There's all kinds of mental health reports on it, deeming the dangers of removing children.
Yeah, that study that the University of Baltimore did, the harm of removal. That one's great, but I think that would be awesome for us to put on. We get a psychiatrist on here, and we need them to tell everybody, look, this is what's going on, and we need you guys to vote and vouch for this. Because people need to hear what this destruction is that's happening to all of these children. They need to realize that these children are victims, but they're being victimized for being victims.
I'm bringing that up, Darren, to say that you take that psychiatrist or psychologist with you to court to prove to the court the damage that's being done and why the child should not be away from you. Or in cases where the child is taken away, you don't have visitation. Absolutely. Why you should have visitation.
We have 3 of those doctors come to my court case. We have mine, we have my husband's, and we have my daughter's. And they all come to the court. And I have a psychiatrist who I have retained as a professional to study the reports of the lower psychologists so that he can speak as an expert witness to second the opinion. So yes, I'm already doing that.
I know Darren has to go, but with all that, Melissa, what kind of results do you get? Does the court listen to the professionals?
That's what Carrie just asked.
So, well, and that's the thing. It depends. It truly depends. Was the professional referred by the department, or are they private retained? Because if they're referred to the department, then they have to take it as an authority. Now, if this is someone you went out and you privately retained, they said, oh, it's a biased testimony. It's a biased testimony. You know, so in my case, my psychologist was privately retained, but there was also a referral from the department. On the other hand, they tried to call him a lying professional, but they tried their damnedest to trip him up and they couldn't do it. So really, it depends on how they're obtained, and there was definite notice taken. And we now have 3 reports by 3 different professionals that all say the same thing. There's no harm, there's no risk, there's no foul, and what the hell are they doing? And on the 18th, when I go back to court, these professionals will be there to speak again. So, yes, the reports, I have read so much case law in my state where one bad doctor led to the termination of a family. And the Court of Appeals overturns it, saying, look, you're taking the advice of the one bad doctor referred by the department when the mother has these 9 doctors that say otherwise. And the cases have been overturned just with a good doctor. I've seen them overturned.
Something else. Okay, Carrie has a question. Have you seen her question about, isn't there a board for CPS, people that will make policies and their rules?
There is. There's a board of overseers, and that's run by a collaboration of government officials. You know what? We'll look into that a little bit more. All I know is the board of overseers. How about you?
It's typically ruled on in the bills set forth by your House of Representatives.
Right. So
they will vote in a bill, and that bill will be broke down into statutes, and then those statutes will be amended into the department's policies.
Okay. Now, real quick, Carrie came back on something. Can you see it, Darren? Said they don't refer her to that therapist. Something, I can't see the rest of the words. Can you see it, Darren? If not, put my glasses on.
Well, it says, well, you know, a therapist does not have to be referred to be a qualified expert. Anyone with a state expert license, whether psychologist, psychiatrist, medical doctor, social worker, they can all speak as a qualified professional in their area. But if you need a good report, you better make sure you have a doctor who is willing to come to court and defend it. Because even though his order is admissible in court without having to have testimony, because that's something that's an allowance they give a doctor, is they don't have to show up. If they don't show up and they don't defend their report the day of trial, the judge will dismiss it as if it was wrote by a 2-year-old. So, yes, medical professionals of all types are very important to use to prove your case.
Well, how about this one?
And if they have a professional that calls you a piece of crap, you need to go hire your own professional or 2 professionals to say the exact opposite.
Look I had a friend of mine that had 3 kids, 2 kids especially, but 3 that said, listen, wife, you kind of thought things were off. You finally got a medical test, proved that those kids weren't So he had the medical test. He had the father of the kids that finally came out and said that they were his kids. Not to mention the destruction that this did to him to find out that they weren't his kids. But then to mention that they went to do the child support thing, and the judge said it doesn't matter. He can finish paying child support. But it's a shooting corral when we're on these courts. But guys, we got to get out of here tonight for our time. So I want to thank everybody for coming in. I think we just handled our last. So guys, thank you guys so much for coming in. Melissa, do you have anything last that you
Well,
wanted to
and
shout
hey,
out?
what I'll do is I'll talk to Dr. Hill, since he is a professor of psychology. He's not just a doctor. He's actually a full-blown professor in like 9 different certifications, and working CPS cases is one of his things. And I'll see if if we can't get him on one of either the night shows, or if we have to, the earlier day show, and we'll all just congregate to my show and see if we can't get him on to kind of answer questions. Because the one thing he taught me that I didn't know, the department told me when you go for an evaluation, they tell you not to take anything, okay? You know what he told me? He says, bullshit. He says, take all your records to defend your case, because your records will make your report. Because anyone can say anything, but it's about what you can prove to the doctor you're seeing.
Well, then let's get him in here so we can learn some more, because that's what we need. Herbert, you got anything left to say?
No, I don't. I just thought, like I said, I just put my 2 cents in, because as I'm listening to you guys, I'm saying, I just feel that the psychologist or psychiatrist should be able to chime in on your behalf to explain the damage it's doing to the children.
Yep, that's good stuff. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. Hey, Carrie, I don't know how to do that, but let's go ahead. Go ahead. Anybody out there, if you want to spam the links to this site, to abolishcps.com or YouTube channels, away, please get people to pay attention to the truth. All right, guys, I'll see you guys. Oh, don't forget, Melissa's show's tomorrow at 6:15 Eastern time, 5:15 her time, and then so on and so forth. So make sure you guys check that out too.
And what time is your show coming on?
Tomorrow night we're back here at 9:15, just like every night, Monday through Friday, baby. So
9:15.
That's 9:15. Here we're at.
Okay.
Every night. All right, guys.
Okay.
Thank you very much. All right, guys. Well, that was a good discussion tonight. So pay attention to who you guys have when you are talking to doctors and to specialists. Because like Melissa said, important. I'm the CPS Punisher. I'm getting out of here. It was getting really hot in here tonight, so I'm gonna take off now while we can. Take it easy, guys. Have a good night.